It's Neurodiversity Celebration Week and taking a chance to have conversations with friends and colleagues here at the John Lennon Centre about neurodiversity. So, Kelsey, you are proudly neurodiverse.
That is correct, James. I am autistic and I also have ADHD.
And so you've got official diagnosis. We know that many people don't have it.
That's correct, yeah.
And did you get that as an adult or as a child?
I got that as an adult, actually. I was tested as a child in school because I was hyperactive and bored and always interrupting the teacher, but for some reason they didn't realize then that people who looked female can also have these diagnoses. That was the 90s.
Yeah, and I think even now it's much harder to get girls to diagnose.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So you've got these two diagnoses. Are you, how can I put it, do you own those?
Yeah.
Or do you think that's a label that society puts on you to say, wait a minute, Kelsey's a bit different?
It's a great question. For me, it's actually nice to finally have a word to put, or a set of words to put to something has always seemed a little different. What's going on? Is this just me? Is this with ADHD, is this like a personality issue? Am I just really untidy? Or, oh, there's actually something going on. It's not just me. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, okay, so let's think about the ADHD.
Yeah.
Because I think people have this sort of stereotypical perception of what that means. How does it sort of manifest in you? What does it mean about the way that you sort of live and work?
Absolutely. So I am bored in meetings, which I know many of us are bored in meetings, but I'm talking, we were talking about something in the meeting 5 minutes ago and I've completely lost track and lost the thread of conversation. My desk is clean right now, which will last for approximately 5 seconds, because usually it's piled high with loads of paperwork and other things. I'm bad at answering emails, scheduling stuff is a nightmare. I have to try really hard to do these things that for some people come much more easily.
Okay. And you said autism as well. And is there a big overlap between those things? Do they manifest sort of similarly, or do you have sort of particular strands of your behaviours and or one and the other?
They're sort of synergistic, but there are things that are definitely pick-outable as one or the other. So for example, with the autism, sometimes I just say something in a social context that after I say it and I look at the people around me, I go, oh, that really wasn't the right thing to say. Oh my gosh, I just fell flat on my face. Or I get overwhelmed in certain situations, like at conferences, poster sessions. I'm just like, there's too many people, there's too much noise, I need out of here right now.
Yeah, I'm a bit too, I mean, I had a brain injury a few years ago and I still struggle in really busy environments.
Yes.
So I imagine it's kind of silly just a bit, wait a minute, it's too much noise, there's too much stuff going on.
That visual flow of people moving by and you're just like, nope, out, I need out, I cannot tolerate this. So earplugs, sunglasses, listening to music in social spaces.
Just kind of reduce that stimulation.
Exactly.
Kind of easier. So are there other ways that you, I guess kind of strategies that you've developed over the years to help you cope with the ADHD and the autism? You've kind of got in your mind, okay, I need to do this, and I need to do this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So one of the big things for me with ADHD has actually been medication. Not everyone with ADHD takes it. For me, it's been a real life changer. I take it and suddenly I go, yeah, tackling those emails sounds like a really good idea. Let's get on that. Whereas before it was emails. Oh God.
Yeah. So just help you get that bit of focus.
That's right. Exactly. The other thing that really has helped me is using a bullet journal. There's like for me, a weekly planner where I sort of go, okay, I sit on Sunday and I go with my colored pens and fancy stickers. Okay, what are we going to do on Monday? What are the scheduled events for Monday? And then also, what tasks would I like to get done on Monday? And then once a month, what's my calendar for the month and what tasks do I want to get done this month? And I look back at the previous weeks, what have I forgotten to do or failed to do, move that to this week.
Okay, yeah, so you've got those kind of citizen strategies yourself in place. What about the combinations that other people can do, should make, to make life a bit easier?
Absolutely. So one of the big things that's helped me at an accommodation level, it's a little bit different legally, but it's something called Access to Work, which I want to make people aware of because it can help a lot with ADHD and autism. So it's a government program that doesn't care whether you're on benefits, doesn't care whether you're an immigrant, and it provides things like ADHD and autism-focused coaching to help you learn strategies in the workplace. In terms of working with people, I think one of the biggest things has just been understanding. So for example, colleagues, oh, you're autistic. Oh, that joke didn't land very well, but we're not going to think that we're personally offended, we understand. Or, oh, I sent you an email a few days ago and you haven't replied. You know, rather than getting angry and going, why didn't you see my email? I'll go, maybe you were distracted, let me just send it again. Or nudge you in person and say, hey, I noticed you didn't answer my email. Could you get back to me?
And how do you feel about it when people do that? Because I think some people might be a bit reticent. Oh, I can't make it again because you'll think I'm just being really irritating and nagging and possibly.
Oh, for me, it's an absolute lifesaver. I actually almost want to have an autoresponder on my email that says, if I don't respond, please nudge me again. So it doesn't bother me in the
And I
slightest.
guess it's about sort of building relationships with your colleagues so that they know that that's okay. And actually, and Kelsey works on that, it's fine. She won't get annoyed.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the people I work closest with do know about my diagnoses. I'm quite open about them as well. I talk about my ADHD on Twitter and things like that. And that's partially also because it helps me when other people know, and then they don't have to guess what's going on. But it's important to remember that not everyone with these diagnoses wants to be open about them, especially I think people who are in more vulnerable career situations. They worry, oh, my boss is going to think I'm a slacker, or my boss is going to think I'm lazy, and that's not the case.
Yeah, and I guess, well, one of the things we're trying to do with these conversations is to kind of open up a bit and remove that stigma, right? People are happy to kind of talk about it if they have those conditions, but also other people just accept people, right? We need to embrace that diversity.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the more we have these sort of what we call universal design around working with people, so making it so that people with neurodivergences don't have to spend a lot of effort trying to manage up and manage sideways and manage their own lives as well, but we can make it a working environment where it works for everyone, so that you don't have to make special accommodations for your neurodivergent and neurodiverse population. You can make sure that there's always, say, at the annual science meeting, right, we have the extra room where people can go and listen in a quieter space. And I've seen multiple people take advantage of that room, and that's just great.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about this sort of neurodiverse population, but actually it's nearly everybody, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, and many of these things are a spectrum. I mean, that's why it's called, for example, an autism spectrum disorder as opposed to just autism by itself. Many people are in different places around the spectrum. The dividing line is, and the way that they sort of give diagnoses is really, when does it start to really strongly affect your life?
Yeah. So we've talked about this kind of accommodation, and I guess that's kind of issues and problems, but clearly you're a group leader at an internationally renowned research centre, right? You've succeeded. Do you think there are parts of your neurodiversity that have helped you in that success?
Oh, absolutely. So I get super enthusiastic, and that's partially the ADHD and partially also and the autism, and also my own personality. I get super enthusiastic and curious about questions. I want to know answers. And I get passionate and I hyper-focus with the ADHD in particular, so I can work on writing a grant for 3 hours without stopping. And I know that a lot of people have trouble with writing, and for me it comes much more naturally, I think, because I get passionate and I get in that hyper-focused mode, and I don't care if the phone is ringing. I am on that writing assignment.
Yeah, it's interesting, that sort of balance between kind of being distracted by lots of things, but also having times where you're really focused and nothing else is distracting, right? You're really kind of committed to that piece of work.
Absolutely. I think attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is maybe not the best name. It's really attention, difficulty modulating attention. So sometimes there's too much and sometimes there's too little, and sometimes you finish that 3 hours of writing and you go, God, I'm really, really thirsty and I really have to go for a wee. Why did I ignore these things for 3 hours?
So I want to ask you specifically about joining this centre. When you first came here to work, was it easy for you to start these conversations about your neurodiversity? Do you find people were kind of broadly accepting of it? Or have you had some real challenges along the way of saying, you know what, I need it to be like this?
It's a great question. So the fun thing for me, actually, when I first came to join this, I didn't have either of these diagnoses. So they were both diagnosed while I've been here. I think because the new role as a group leader, I've had less directed mentoring and less directed leadership from my line manager, for example, because I'm the head of a group now. And that's when things started to really become issues, and when I went and said, I've got to seek diagnoses and figure out what's going on. But since I've had those conversations, for the most part, colleagues have been really open and accepting about them. I think the only time it's been a little difficult has been at more formal review times, when people have gone, well, why haven't you done this? And I've gone, well, we had a medication shortage in Britain for the last 6 months, and I've had really challenging times. And my line manager's been really accepting of that, and he's aware, which is really great. But I think sometimes when you're at the group leader level, the assessments under which you're placed are very fluid and very not quite concrete. And as someone with autism in particular, I really need those concrete guidelines as to how I'm supposed to succeed.
And do you think the similar story would happen for, like a PhD student, somebody much more junior coming into a role here? Would they find a similar kind of acceptance, or does your status, your seniority make that pathway much easier?
I think it does make it easier to some degree, and I think also just age maturity and being alive for longer has actually helped me adapt, for sure. I think with PhD students, because their success is measured in different ways, it can be tough for them to figure out, well, the PCR has failed for the 20th time. Is this me? Am I a terrible person? No, it's not you. It's the PCR. Don't worry. But I think that confidence is sometimes a little bit more difficult, and also because they're being directly managed, you have the advantage where you have more direct management, which is great, but also sometimes, depending on the relationship between the student and the supervisor, that can really lead to some challenges for students.
Okay, so to wrap up, what advice are you going to give to somebody who has neurodiversity or suspects they have coming to work in a place like this? And also, what advice are you going to give to their managers?
Yes, absolutely. So advice for the person who's living with the situation, I would say find tools that work for you. So right now there's a lot of great videos on YouTube. There's people on TikTok, for example, who have wonderful resources for ADHD, and I've learned a lot from those. I think in the past we didn't have those resources, so it was, okay, leaf through a book, try to learn some strategies, and now you can learn those strategies quite quickly. Work with a coach. If Access to Work would help you, absolutely apply for it. Unfortunately, I think it doesn't cover students, which is a real pity, but there are other resources open to students specifically. And try those strategies out. If they don't work for you, adopt a different one. Just give them all a try. For someone managing someone with neurodivergence, I would say the most important thing is to be patient, but also to communicate clear expectations. I think that one of the things that ADHD and autism have in common is that need for concrete, clear communication, because otherwise you end up with misunderstandings, the sort of subtle, unspoken words that aren't necessarily understood, and that could lead to a lot of anxiety and tension. So just clear communication of expectations, clear communication of what's going on, what's expected, what should be done, and so on.
Yeah, and embrace that diversity. So I've been talking to Kelsey Byers, group leader here at the John Innes Centre in Norwich. Thanks so much.
Thanks, James.